The season is getting close and it's time to dive into the Texas defense, position by position, player by player, so we can get to know our favorite team in and out. This was a great group last year, but can we expect even more improvement? Paul Wadlington, football theorist at Inside Texas, is back for part 2. If you missed part 1 on the offense, then you have to get the latest edition of the annual Burnt Orange Bible. The 2023 Longhorn Football Prospectus, Thinking Texas Football, is the best preview for the Longhorns, our opponents, and the Big 12 as a whole. Thinking Texas Football is out now, and you can pick it up in paperback on Amazon or get the ebook on Apple or Smashwords. Level up your knowledge of the squad and start thinking Texas football today. Links to all purchase options are in the description below. After you pick up your copy of the book, stay up to date with Paul and the gang's writings over on Inside Texas. Don't miss out on the hundreds of articles being pumped out during a crucial fall camp. Make sure to subscribe at InsideTexas.com today, link in the description. We know where the offense stands, but now it's time to inspect the defense and see what to expect on PK's side of the ball. Without further ado, let's get into it. All right, Paul, let's get right into it and break down the defense. First, we have interior defensive line. We lost some guys to the NFL, but we still got some dudes. I consider Murphy, Sweat, Collins, and Carter our 4 main guys in the starting rotation. So what's your analysis on the core group going into 2023?
Despite losing 2 players to the NFL draft on the interior D-line, there will be no teams in the Big 12 and very few teams in the country that will have the kind of interior D-line depth and talent that the University of Texas has. It's headlined by Byron Murphy. Byron Murphy, the young junior, is finally going to have his moment to be the centerpiece of the Texas defense, and he's going to be up for the challenge. Byron is a very powerful player. He's got great get-off. He uses his hands well, and this is going to be the year where he fully breaks out as a dominant force inside. He's going to be flanked by veteran T'Vondre Sweat. T'Vondre has played in 48 games as a Longhorn, and since being a 240-pound high school defensive end, he's gained about a tridelt since he's been on campus. He's over 355 pounds, and he is very hard to move inside. T'Vondre needs to be a little bit more consistent with his play effort. I think the level of depth that Texas has is going to help him in that regard. Then there's Alfred Collins. Alfred Collins was a highly ranked recruit, and he's tantalized since he's been in Austin. He's been moved around a little bit. Wasn't clear where he fit best in the Pete Kwiatkowski system, but Alfred has put on some good weight. He is still maintaining his agility and excellent first step, and he should be a plus pass rusher inside as part of that rotation. This is the year for Alfred Collins to break out, and if he does, he has NFL draft potential. Last but not least, Trill Carter. The transfer from Minnesota is evidence of the incredible depth of this room, in that this gentleman is going to be probably the number 3 or number 4 tackle in the rotation. And he started 24 games for the Gophers. He was all honorable mention Big Ten. And he's just been a very consistent player. He got the most snaps of any defensive lineman for the Gophers, and he is going to be a part of that Texas rotation. He's generously listed at 6'2". He's probably a little closer to 6 feet even wearing sweat socks. But Trill Carter has great hands, great punch, and he's very difficult to move off the ball. Combines that, as with Byron Murphy, with a terrific motor. That quartet is one of the most formidable interior defensive line groups in the United States, and they are going to headline the Texas defense.
And that's not even all of them. We have the challengers to add even more depth and competition to that interior group. Vernon Broughton is established, but the rest of the room is younger guys. How are you feeling about the guys who will get some reps this year, but are more the future of the position?
Well, the embarrassment of riches inside does not end with the starting rotation. They also have some really good reserves that Texas coaches and Bo Davis are going to have to work into that rotation, starting with big Sydir Mitchell. Sydir Mitchell is every bit of 6'6", 360 pounds. He inhabits multiple zip codes when he's out on the field. And Sydir, despite carrying a little bit of bad weight, is incredibly difficult to move off of the ball. And when he's fresh, he's actually a pretty effective pass rusher inside because of his ability to generate velocity at that size. He's going to have to work to remake his body and also build out his conditioning. But Sadir is going to be a player that Bo Davis is going to want to integrate into the lineup. And as the weather gets a little cooler and the big guys get a little friskier, expect to see a little bit more of Sadir Mitchell. He's also going to be joined by Vernon Broughton. Vernon Broughton is a fourth-year junior, and he's going to have to fight hard for his snaps this year. Broughton has explosiveness out of his stance, and he's capable of a good initial strike. He is an effective pass rusher. However, he has always played with high pads, and he has an inability to gain leverage, and that's really limited his ability to break into the starting rotation despite some pretty substantial athletic gifts. Vernon Broughton needs to get stronger and play a little lower and earn his snaps. Aaron Bryant is a player who doesn't have any problems anchoring. The redshirt freshman from Mississippi has seen limited action, and he probably will see limited action again this year before coming into the starting lineup or becoming part of the rotation in 2024. He'll also be joined by Jere Bledsoe. Now, Jere Bledsoe is a bewitching combination of raw athleticism, explosiveness, and unique flexibility, pad level, and just general mayhem creation. Jere is currently a tweener. He's caught between the size of being a valuable three technique inside or possibly an edge. With that respect, don't be surprised if the Texas coaches try him a little bit at edge over fall camp and see if he can be a major contributor there. If not, expect him to put him in the oven, bake him a little bit longer, and you'll see a pretty impressive player from Jere Bledsoe down the road. Finally, Zach Swanson is an undersized but very game pass rusher. He is a player that you could play matchups with, particularly in certain game situations. He's an effective interior pass rusher. He has a unique ability to get small and get through double teams or even single blocking as a pass rusher inside. However, because of a lack of mass and size, he's not a every down player, but he does actually have some situational use and ability, and he rounds out the group of challengers to that interior rotation and adds to the embarrassment of riches that the Texas Longhorns have in the interior defensive line.
It's going to be key to see who can emerge after this season at interior. And of course, a major question this offseason has been about generating pass rush. So let's hit both the defensive ends, strong side and weak side. We know Barron Sorrell has the strong side locked down at Jack, but what's the depth chart there looking like currently?
Barron Sorrell headlines the edge group, and that player has leveled up every year he's been in Texas since seeing some substantial playing time as a true freshman. Barron Sorrell is a high motor, high effort, high energy, and very strong side edge, and he's going to be an important part of the Longhorn defensive line. Last year, he had 44 tackles, 5.5 sacks, and 9 tackles for loss, along with 7 quarterback hurries. He's looking to increase those numbers substantially in 2023, and he'll have to if the Texas defense is going to level up. Also equally important to that level up is the edge that plays on the other side from him. That's going to be probably Ethan Burke. Ethan Burke is a true sophomore from Austin Westlake. He made a nice leap this spring. He's put on some good body weight. He's up to about 255 or so, and he is fitting that on a 6'6" frame. Right now, the concern is that he might not be strong enough at the point of attack against higher end offensive lines. However, Burke is a technical player. He's also very quick for his size, and he has a good change of direction, and he has the potential to be a good pass rusher. He's a player who probably has his best football in front of him, but for now, Texas is counting on him to hold down the opposite edge position from Barron Sorrell. Also competing with Burke and also in the rotation with Barron Sorrell as sort of the third edge is Justice Finkley. Justice came in and impressed everyone with his maturity in his compact 250-pound frame. One thing to know about Justice Finkley is, though he has a great work rate and an excellent motor, he is a shorter edge. And when you're a shorter edge and you don't have that length, you can get big brothered sometimes by higher end offensive tackles unless you have absolutely elite quickness or elite power. So Justice Finkley is a player who is absolutely going to contribute to Texas this year, but he may not have some of the requisite attributes that the Texas staff is looking for at edge. As it is, Finkley is a very high motor player, and he's particularly good at T&E stunts. That's tackle and end stunts, where if you can get him on the move, he's able to exploit slower-footed, less athletic offensive linemen. Also, very athletic young player is Jamon Tapp from Louisiana. He's a redshirt freshman. He's put on some weight since coming to Texas. He's now in the 260s. The light has not fully turned on for Mr. Tapp, and he's a work in progress, but he does stand to figure to factor into the rotation at edge. Finally, Chris Ross lost about 25 pounds to try out edge. With that weight loss, I think he also lost a little bit of strength. He has good get off. He has a good initial step. However, he is not able to finish plays. And once he engages with a bigger, stronger offensive tackle, he's not able to always fight through that block. So I think Chris Ross is going to be a work in progress. Rounding out the edge room are newcomers Billy Walton and Colton Vosick, both very good players with high level potential, but they're probably not going to see much playing time this year. Look for them to make an impact in 2024 and 2025.
And then looking at the defensive line unit as a whole, what are the big keys there that would maximize the defense overall?
Last year, Texas led the country in pressures, but didn't always convert them to sacks, finishing with 27. Much of that is on the Longhorn secondary, needing to challenge receivers more on key downs so that the rush can get home. But a good bit of it is also on Texas defensive linemen finishing plays and constricting the pocket with better containment. Getting quarterbacks on the ground a half dozen times more last year might have been the difference between 8-5 and 12-2.
Yeah, man, if we can convert pressures to concrete sacks, this defense is going to be a problem. And now let's look at the second level. Our sure thing is Jalen Ford at middle linebacker. And in fall camp, Benda has been taking the first team reps at will to replace DeMarvion. And then, of course, we've also got the young gun and Anthony Hill turning heads as more of a third down pass rusher. It's an interesting room. So what's the linebacker depth chart looking like?
Defensive MVP and first team All Big 12 linebacker Jalen Ford is the centerpiece of the Texas linebacker group and the most indispensable man on the Texas defense. Ford was a productivity machine, totaling 119 tackles, 10 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 4 interceptions, 3 forced fumbles, 2 recovered fumbles, and a partridge in a pear tree. Ford was effectively responsible for 7 of the 14 turnovers that the defense created all season, which is a credit to Ford and a little bit of a shame on the other 10 defenders. Jalen Ford is the key vertex in the interior triangle. He's the most important player on the Texas defense, and he is going to headline what should be a much improved Texas Longhorn defense. Joining Ford will be fifth-year junior linebacker David Benda. Benda has appeared in 32 contests, and he is typical of the mold of spread-busting linebacker archetype that proliferates in the Big 12. But Texas fans are still waiting for Benda to put it together and become a more instinctive player. Far too frequently, David gets caught chasing ghosts, putting him out of position and allowing offenses to run or throw the ball to his vacant space. Continuity in the system and more time in a defined role should help him. Benda should have an improved season and become a very solid player flanking Jalen Ford. Then you have the wild card, and that is true freshman Anthony Hill. All of the buzz in the offseason and in the spring was around Anthony Hill and his pure athletic ability. The 230-pound Hill showed elite quickness and is already the best blitzer and pure edge pass rusher on the football team. He's cheetah quick, he refuses blocking, and he has tremendous motor and recovery. He's not, however, a true refined off-the-ball linebacker yet. So Pete Kwiatkowski is going to have to find a role for him where he can point and shoot his new agent of destruction and mayhem in Anthony Hill. You also have Jett Bush, who is back for his second year at his natural position at off-the-ball linebacker. Jett Bush is a much more solid player than I think the average Longhorn fan believes. I think they tends to get a little bit underestimated because he's a former walk-on. But Bush is a capable off-the-ball linebacker. He's a good backup for Jalen Ford and may actually occasionally flank him in some sets. The 245-pound Bush has solid range, certainly much better than the average fan's perception of him. He led the team in tackles in the first half of the spring scrimmage and made a variety of good plays. He should be a solid contributor in 2023. Rounding out the group is Maurice Blackwell. Blackwell is built like a safety, but he hits like a linebacker. The question is whether he can run like a linebacker or a safety. He is going to play Sam, or the strong side linebacker position, which isn't often on the field due to the nickel formation and wanting to get Jahdae Barron as many snaps as possible. So for that reason, Blackwell will also compete at will, the weak side linebacker. Blackwell loves contact, and he's a great striker, but he's only 210 pounds. So against certain opponents, he may not see the field a great deal. Against other opponents, you may see him get anywhere between 30 to 40 snaps.
The 23 linebacker class is really stacked, so how did the other freshmen besides Anthony Hill factor into the room?
The new guys round out the linebacker core, and they include Leona Lefau, Cecilia Kana, Samaje Burrell, and Darian Gillette. Of that four, you can expect Lefau to probably log the most snaps in relief of both David Benda and Jalen Ford. Cecilia Kana and Darian Gillette are still not fully formed, and the coaches aren't fully sure if they're linebackers or situational edge rushers. And then finally, Samaje Burrell has impressed already in his time on campus. However, he's going to need a little bit more time in the cooker to fully come to his full realization as a player.
That's a key group to watch over the coming years as well. Next, let's hit DBs. For the sake of clarity, I've broken it up into corner, nickel, and safety. Some of these can be interchangeable as guys grow, but I think structuring it this way reduces confusion. So let's hit corner first, and this is a damn good room. So what's your outlook on this lineup at the corner spot?
Well, if you thought Texas was talented and deep on the interior defensive line, wait until you see cornerback. The group is headlined by Ryan Watts, the former Ohio State transfer. He's every bit of 6'3", 210 pounds, standing out on the boundary. He is an imposing force. He is great in run support, and he's an effective in pass coverage. He's effective zone, and he's effective in man coverage. Ryan Watts is going to be a stalwart out on one edge. There's a battle at the field corner position between Terrence Brooks and Gavin Holmes, the transfer from Wake Forest. First, Terrence Brooks. He is a horsepower RPM corner. He's every bit of 6 feet, 200 pounds. He's extremely powerful, and he's very good at directing receivers to run the route that he wants them to run. He's also effective in run support. Terrence Brooks struggled a little bit early in the year and blew a couple of coverages, one of them in the TCU game that a lot of Longhorn fans may remember. But what they forget is that Terrence Brooks drew the start in the Alamo Bowl and was instrumental in holding down one of the most effective and impressive receiver corps in the country. Terrence Brooks has grown. He understands the playbook a lot better, and he is going to be hard to get off the field over at field corner. Gavin Holmes is going to try his very best to unseat Terrence Brooks. The young Wake Forest transfer is a gazelle compared to Terrence Brooks, but he might be arguably the best pure man coverage corner on the roster. And for that reason, he has a role and at the very minimum should be the third corner in the lineup. Holmes is long despite being pretty skinny, and he doesn't seem shy about contact either, which is a necessity if you're going to get on the field in the Pete Kwiatkowski defense. The group is rounded out by Austin Jordan, Xavier Bryce, and promising young freshman Malik Muhammad. Austin Jordan has been playing good football for Texas. The main issue that he has is he's surrounded by a lot of very talented players. His time will come in Austin sooner rather than later. Xavier Bryce, you could say very similar things. The coaches like his length. They like his wingspan. They like his competitiveness. However, he's flanked by some really, really talented players, and it's hard to find snaps in the current Longhorn lineup. One player who has intrigued is freshman Manny Muhammad or Malik Muhammad. Muhammad is one of the most fluid players on the roster, and he actually has pretty high football IQ for his age. Expect him to get integrated into the lineup early and often, though it's probably unlikely he'll start. It's not out of the question for a player as talented as Malik Muhammad.
Muhammad is going to be a dude. And then we got the nickel, the fifth DB on the field, held down by Jahdae Barron. But what's the remainder of the room looking like, including the new freshman?
Jahdae Barron wasn't actually a starter to begin the season last year, but he quickly seized that role and became one of the most dynamic players in the Longhorn defense. He actually led the team in tackles for loss from the nickel position, which is not a very common occurrence in football at any level. That has to do with the fact that Jahdae Barron has unique quickness and tremendous recognition skills. And also for his size, and despite his skill as a pure coverage player, he's actually extremely good at supporting the run. He does it at a much higher level than you'd expect from a 185-pound nickel. He is one of the headliners of the Longhorn defense, and along with Jalen Ford, one of its most instrumental players. The talent doesn't end at nickel with Jahdae Barron, though. He's backed up by Jalen Guilbeau, who had his season ended prematurely last year with injury. Jalen Guilbeau isn't quite as athletic as Jahdae Barron, but he is incredibly competitive, and he's also extremely aggressive from that position. He loves to fill the hole against the run. He likes to play on the edge. He needs to improve a little bit in terms of pure coverage, but he's actually very game there as well. You're unlikely to find better nickel depth anywhere in the Big 12 than what Texas has with Jahdae Barron and Jalen Guilbeau. Finally, rounding out this group of coverage guys, you have some young guys who've already turned heads early in Austin. The Texas coaches are absolutely in love with the freshman defensive back class. And two of the reasons are Warren Roberson and Jelani McDonald. Warren Roberson has already turned heads in the spring, and for his pure athletic ability, he is a spark monster. Vertical leap, explosiveness, power. He is a player that is going to grow into a position, and whether that's at the nickel or eventually at safety, he is going to make an impact in Austin. And then finally, Jelani McDonald, an outstanding athlete, is still looking for his spot. But if you see him out on the field, you kind of wonder if the 6'2" plus, 195-pound, 200-pound player is destined to stay at nickel, where he's fully capable of playing and covering. But might he eventually grow into a safety or even a linebacker? Time will tell with Jelani McDonald, but the coaches love him.
And now we got yet another room I'm excited for, the safeties. The key four-man rotation is Thompson and Catalon to start, and then Keaton Crawford and Michael Taft behind them, but all will play a good amount. What's the outlook on the main safeties this year?
Jaron Thompson is the captain of the Longhorn defensive back room, and he is going to be coordinating that back end. The veteran has started 20 games at Texas, amassing 138 tackles, breaking up 13 passes, and grabbing 2 interceptions. He probably has another 3 or 4 that he could have had, but there's a reason guys play defensive back and not wide receiver. Thompson isn't a huge player, but he is a run enforcer, and he makes very few mistakes. He is an integral part of the Longhorn back end, and he's going to be complemented by a very interesting player that Texas fans probably need to think of as a lottery ticket, and that's standout Arkansas transfer Jalen Catalon. Jalen Catalon is a safety with terrific upside and proven abilities at the highest levels of football, but he has a worrisome injury history. He played only 1 game in 2022 before a season-ending shoulder injury, and he missed another 8 games in 2021 with the same malady. Supposedly, he had a great offseason, and rehab and surgery supposedly have corrected the shoulder issue, but that remains to be seen when live bullets start flying. At his best, Catalon is a first-team all-SEC safety with all-American potential. He has unique ability to recognize plays. He's fearless with his body. He has great side-to-side lateral motion and ability. And frankly, he has an instinct for the ball that has been missing in the Texas secondary for some time. But again, because of his injury history, he's best viewed as a lottery ticket. Keaton Crawford is also going to be part of the safety group. He has elite athleticism and physicality. That's one of the reasons he's a standout star special teams player for the Longhorns and for Jeff Banks. However, he's not been able to translate that dynamism to recognition and coverage recognition specifically. Keaton Crawford still needs to grow in his mental game and in terms of his ability to see the ball and anticipate the ball. If he does that, Texas has a wealth of riches at safety. If he doesn't, he's a viable part of the rotation that may be surpassed by some other players. Michael Taft is a third-year sophomore walk-on from Westlake who is going to be in that rotation. He's now a scholarship player, and he had 26 tackles last year and is much more effective in coverage than most Longhorn fans perceive. He's also a much better athlete than most Longhorn fans perceive. He played extensive snaps against Kansas State last year and did a very good job in run support despite weighing about 180, 185 pounds, and had 6 solo tackles, more than coming up and doing his part in run stopping against the Wildcat running offense. Michael Taft is going to be a key asset to the safety room, an important part of the rotation.
And then on top of that, we still have challengers at safety, and we have B.J. Allen, who looks like he's more engaged now, Larry Turner Gooden, and a surefire future starter and freshman 5-star Derek Williams. So how do you feel about the extended depth at safety?
Texas has promising depth at safety, headlined by redshirt freshman B.J. Allen, who had a little bit of a coming out party this spring. He put on a little bit of bad weight and lost that weight. He's probably dropped about 12 to 15 pounds over the last 6 months, and that's shown in his play. B.J. Allen is a big safety. He's rangy. He has some recognition ability, and he's not shy about contact. He's still a young player, but don't be surprised at all if B.J. Allen not only pushes for rotation snaps, but also for a starting job by midseason. He's joined by someone they call the Predator, and you don't want to be caught in a Central American jungle with him or on a football field. His name is Derek Williams. The true freshman from Louisiana looks the part. You see him on the football field, you're not sure if he shouldn't be in the linebacker room. but he moves like a safety. Derek Williams is a very exciting young prospect. He is going to find a way to get on the field this year, whether at safety or on special teams. In any event, remember the name Derek Williams because it's a name you're going to hear called quite a bit in his Longhorn career. Finally, rounding out the group is Larry Turner Gooden. The Californian is in a crowded room, and he may not have the pure foot speed to compete with some of the other more athletic and talented cohorts. However, he is serious about football, and he is someone that's considered a legitimate depth piece in the safety room.
Good stuff. And then bird's eye view. What does the Texas defense need to do in totality this season to go from that good to great tier?
In 2023, Texas is nearly guaranteed to play good defense. The question is, how do they go about playing great defense? There's too much returning talent and experience not to excel in the third year in this system. If the Horns show considerable improvement in getting off of the field on money downs and mayhem creation, they'll be an elite unit. These are the four things that will determine the ability of the Texas defense to go from good to great. Number one, getting off the field on third and fourth down. Number two, yards per play allowed. Simply no explosives. Number three, red zone defense. When an opponent gets inside the 20, hold them to a field goal. Number four, mayhem. That's turnover creation, non-offensive scoring, and tackles for loss. Texas was not great at that last metric. And if they can improve there, going from a defense that tries to get stops to a defense that actually plays offense, the 2023 Texas defense may be one that Texas fans will remember for quite some time.
Texas was the 11th ranked defense in the country last year by DFEI, so those little tweaks on third down and getting turnovers can put us into that dominant tier. And then, of course, the always underreported special teams. Don't accuse us of not caring about a third of the game. Where is our personnel at in kicking, kickoffs, and punting? And what can the special teams unit overall achieve this season?
Special teams are the vegetables of unit discussions, and Paul Wadlington and Texas Homer believe that you need to eat your vegetables, people. Burt Auburn returns with the easy confidence of a white man sporting an afro. Burt kicked extremely well for Texas last year, connecting on 21 of 26 attempts, including an outstanding 7 of 9 on kicks between 40 to 49 yards, with only one blocked kick. That 80.8% accuracy was good for fourth in Longhorn history. The junior is back, and this team will be better for it. Will Stone handled kickoffs last year capably, having 26 touchbacks on 86 attempts, and his hang time was instrumental in Longhorn coverage teams being one of the best in the nation. That said, Jeff Banks raved about Will Stone adding to his strength and leg strength, so you can expect more touchbacks when appropriate, and you can also expect more hang time when the Texas coverage teams don't fear the opposing returner. Punting will be much improved. Danny Machete Trejo did his best when pressed into emergency action, but his lack of hang time and directional control belied his 42-yard per kick average. By advanced metrics, he was in the bottom quartile of FBS punters and second from last in the Big 12. Former Stanford punter Ryan Sanborn comes to Texas as a 4-year starter, and he is going to improve that aspect of the Texas special team substantially. Sanborn doesn't bring an elite leg, but he has elite placement. He was the only punter in FBS to go 20 for 20 on attempts to pin opponents inside their 20, and not a single one of his 50 punting attempts went for a touchback. Sanborn is gifted at directional placement. He'll have the same per kick average as Trejo, but from a field position perspective, he's going to have a lot of Longhorn opponent offenses starting inside their 10-yard line. Most Texas fans probably don't realize that the 2022 special teams were ranked just outside of the top 10 nationally. They can actually get better. Texas has had an infusion of young talent, which will help the coverage and kickoff return teams. And they also return some very important kickers, as well as add an important component in Stanford punter Ryan Sanborn. Most of the key components of the Texas special teams are back or have been improved. And they also have Jeff Banks leading the charge. This projects to be a top 10 national unit. That could be the difference between Texas going to the playoffs or missing out on their dreams.
It's tough not to get excited about this year's team overall. Excellent stuff as always, Paul. Please tell the fans where they can read your weekly columns and, of course, where to pick up your latest edition of the Burnt Orange Bible.
If you want to follow me and a murderer's row of Longhorn analysts and recruiting experts, join Inside Texas now. If you're not part of Inside Texas, you're on the outside of the best group, unparalleled group of Longhorn coverage on the internet. And if you want to learn more about this 2023 season, the Texas Longhorns, and all the Texas Longhorn opponents, go buy the 2023 Longhorn Football Prospectus, Thinking Texas Football. It is the most comprehensive preview of the Texas Longhorns and their opponents that you will find on the market. You can find it at Amazon for the paperback, hardback copy, or you can buy it electronically on Apple or Smashwords, which is Kindle compatible. Thanks for your time, and hook 'em.
And that's a wrap on Paul Wadlington. Head over to Inside Texas and sign up today. Thanks for hanging out. Watch some more of my videos here. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you want to support quality Texas content. As always, hook 'em.